Hey guys, thank you so much for joining us this evening. We have a special call in that we have our very own Alice Alberts. I almost didn't, no, actually, I always say Alice Alberts now. I don't go back to what I used to make the mistake on before. It's been long enough. But Alice Alberts, who's just coming off winning Ironman Lake Placid, I thought it'd be really cool for you guys to have the opportunity to ask her questions about her training, about her race, and maybe learn from her progression through the sport. And how we want to do it, just to keep things streamlined, as per usual, if you can type your questions in the chat, and then I will monitor those, and then I will ask Alice the questions. So please feel free to start doing that. And what I thought I would do, because it's a question I always get asked about Alice, is that she was a working full-time when she was an age group athlete. And that was, of course, not too long ago. And so you guys understanding kind of what her training looked like then versus what her training looked like now as she went full-time into triathlon, and what are some of the adjustments she made in her training through those extra hours that she was given. So Alice, if you want to get started with that.
Yeah, totally. I get that one a lot. So those who don't know, I was a full-time nurse practitioner when I took up triathlon in 2021 and was working that job until I went pro in June, July last year, 2022. So yeah, I know what it's like having that full-time job and balancing training along with that. Just kind of like objectively, I'll talk about kind of numbers difference between what it was like with my full-time job versus now. I would say with Ironman training, I was probably averaging numbers wise more like 16 to 18 back then, and probably peaking more like 20 to 22 hours, with a lot of those hours being on weekends, of course, just because of working a full-time job during the week. And I would say now I'm probably averaging more like 22 to 24 and sort of peaking around the 28 hours. But the thing I want to focus on the most, the difference between like when I was working full-time and now when I'm training full-time, is actually just the attention I'm sort of able to give my training. And that means just like mindset going into my training, understanding that like this is my job for the day and this is what I'm doing. I'm not having to rush off to work. But then also the ability to recover after and between my sessions and just kind of decrease the other stress in my life. That's really been the biggest difference. Like, of course, the hours have gone up a little, but it's really my ability to put the attention I need to on what I'm doing, and then also, you know, recover well between each of them. And then I do want to point out, like, yes, hours have gone up, but it's not been a tremendous difference in like the intensity sessions. Like my amount of intensity throughout the week is actually kind of pretty similar, you know, like you guys all, if you're NVDM athletes, do typically your hard bike on a Tuesday, your harder run on a Wednesday. I'm still kind of doing that sort of thing. The biggest change in my hours has been really a lot of my like endurance base aerobic time has gone up most. So still doing like pretty much the same amount of intensity. I'm just able to do a lot of that endurance work, and then also recovery stuff. So like easy recovery spins at the end of the day, like we give those for a reason because they actually really do help and prep you for the next day. So yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. To note, when Alice was working full-time, she won Ironman Coeur d'Alene, she won Ironman Texas, and her average hours were, just as she said, 16 to 18, with maybe 1 or 2 peak weeks at 20 hours. So if you're focused going into your sessions, she's training the same amount as you guys are to achieve those results. Obviously, there's a lot of talent behind those results as well, but it wasn't just strictly driven by volume or more intensity. And then what she said specifically about the zone 2 training, make sure if you have time, like that's where you add, you know, that's essentially where our full-time athletes are adding. So I wanted you to make sure you got that takeaway. Brandon, guys, make sure to chat up. I see a lot of people have joined us. If you have a question for Alice, it can be a lot lifestyle, training, anything nutrition wise, please type it in the chat and we'll answer it. But Brendan asked us, when is Alice joining the PTO tour? Do you want to explain kind of what that is and like what your ranking needs to be and stuff like that?
Yeah, so I think it's even going to be a little different next year from some of the podcasts and stuff I've listened to, but right now racing PTO, you have to be top 30. I think actually the lowest ranked Lauren Brandon raced and she was something like 55, but next year they're really taking top 20 to top 30 athletes. I'm currently 60th. So hope is that I can get a few more good results at the end of this year. And be able to pump that up. I mean, I only have a few pro races. So hopefully with more pro races and good results, I can improve that. But the other caveat to that is that so far I'm an Ironman athlete, right? And PTO is 100K, so more like a 70.3 distance. So I kind of need to test and see what I'm like at that distance. Tried to do Mont Tremblant 70.3 this year, but smoke canceled that one. So yeah, not quite qualified to be PTO and also need to see how I would compete there.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, if you have any questions, please type them in the chat. Otherwise, I'll ask questions that I get all the time about Alice's training. Obviously you're a coach for NVDM. You know what these guys are doing and the training wise. I would say for you, like, are there any specific workouts that you have done and you see yourself giving to your athletes that for you have been the most effective in the swim, bike, and run?
Yeah, so I'll definitely start with swim. It's one of my favorite ones. One of the terms you sometimes call it is mambo swim. It's like the really big 100 to 500. It's also labeled sometimes, but basically it's an Ironman swim. I'm trying to even think how to explain it without talking too long, but the first set you're doing 4 100s, and then the second set you increase the distance of one of them to 200. The rest are still 100s. And then the next set you increase one to 300, and the next set you increase it to 400, and the next set you increase it to 500. Basically, the point is that interval that's going up is supposed to be your race pace. And you want to basically check if you're able to hold that one consistent as it goes up in distance. So I sort of explained it there, but it's a super fun one. If you're doing an Ironman, ask your coach to do it because it's really good on checking in if you're pacing correctly. And it's long. So you deal with the fatigue that you kind of get through the swim, but it also goes by super, super quickly. So it's a fun one. Bike, I would say I personally, and Natasha knows this, love to ride outside and I love really long rides. So I do well just kind of going out for like a very long endurance ride and kind of going off of how I feel. I think primarily because that's made me really focus on my nutrition and really, really dial that in. And that's obviously so huge in an Ironman. So I think that's why those have benefited me so much, as well as just being like kind of like a confidence booster. And then the run, no really key ones. I think the importance of the run, and you guys are probably sick of hearing this, is like take your easy days easy and your hard days hard. But yeah, just staying healthy with the run and making sure that you feel good when you're doing it. I run off the bike a ton and I find that really helpful. So I guess I would say just running off the bike. But no really key sessions there that come to mind.
And do you pace your runs off heart rate or off?
Yeah. So I am very much a heart rate based athlete. I pace all of my stuff off heart rate. Because some days you're going to be really quick and other days you're not. But if you're like listening to your body, which is what you're getting back with that feedback from your heart rate, you're going to feel kind of good about getting out of the session what you needed to get out of the session. So yeah, I also race off heart rate. Not bike I go off power, but I know my other metrics. So I know the heart rate max I'm going to let myself go to. I know if I'm too low and I can push it. I know if I'm not feeling good about my power, I'll just go off my heart rate. But running in a race, I am always going off heart rate. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. So that's not only for your easy runs, guys, but she actually does it for her key runs too. So
Yeah.
instead of riding like 6x1K at 550 pace, a lot of times we'll do 6x1K holding 160-ish heart rate. And so there's always a delay in heart rate. She finally gets there, but then she locks that in and it's more like how she would race. So, okay, we got so many questions now. So let's knock this out. Thank you guys for asking your questions. So Andrew George asked, what's on your schedule the rest of the year? Are you coming to any of the team races?
Yeah, so next weekend I'm racing my first Olympic, actually. I'm doing a local Boston triathlon. So that'll be fun to try the short course stuff. We'll see, no pressure on myself, just kind of throwing that in there to get some speed work. But then next big one is I'm doing Ironman Maryland, September 16th, and then I'm doing Ironman Florida in November. So team race there, and I hope to see a lot of you there. That'll be super fun. Yeah.
Can you share with the team? So Alice qualified for Kona, which is this massive, it's a big deal that people dream to go to Kona. But for her and her development and where she is in her career, she actually decided, I agreed off the fact, and her husband, Mike, said, let's go a different route and let's do Maryland and Florida. Can you explain why you did that?
Yeah, I mean, so many various reasons. I think the primary one kind of being that I am pretty new in the sport, and with the timing of Kona, it was kind of being like, all right, I'm going to put all my eggs in training in this basket, and then, huge long flight. The race could go well or it could go poorly, whatever. And then I raced one more the rest of the season, or it was kind of like, okay, I could stay more local and I could get more races in. Hoping to do well, maybe get more sort of like, I don't want to say attention, but to, get my name out there a little more racing these races. And just get more experience kind of before I feel like I'm ready to be on that world champs stage. So just to do more races instead of fewer.
And to be at a team race and see everybody.
Yeah. No, yeah. Florida really did sound awesome. I think I was gonna try to come no matter what, whether I was racing it or not. But
Yeah.
why not race it if I'm gonna be there? So
Absolutely. Okay, this is a great question from Anna Olson. You guys all heard that Penticton, Ironman Canada actually just got canceled due to the fires. So Alice went through that. So she said, how did you mentally deal with Mont Tremblant 70.3 getting canceled? Just got race canceled on me, and it's really tough mentally.
yeah, that was particularly crazy. So with Mont Tremblant, I think most of you know this, but like we were there, we checked our bikes in, we were there race morning, we were in our swim skins, we'd like walk down to the race start, and that's when we learned the race was canceled. So that was pretty crazy just because you went through your, race taper week, you went through your night before the race. I did my whole breakfast, my nerves were high, like mentally I'm having this race. And actually it really was hard mentally, and Natasha can attest to this. My body reacted as if I had raced. So I had a very hard week the week after the race. I actually went to do a long race or a long bike ride, I think just the Monday after. And I blew up. I had to stop. I had to stop myself because my body was just the stress. I was reacting as if I raced. So how did I deal with that? Natasha gave me an easy week. We basically recovered as if I raced and then got back into it. It wasn't easy at all. Mentally, I just kind of told myself there's going to be other races. And that this, wasn't the end all be all. And my body obviously was in a good place to be able to race, hopefully. So just to treat it well and get ready for the next one. Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. And people don't realize just the emotional toll. It's like there's physical toll, but emotional toll, and to respect that. And so like, don't expect yourself, Anna, to just get back into training. Like your emotions are going to still run high this week. Respect that. And then just kind of slowly get yourself back, since you do have time before the next Ironman. But yeah, super tough. So Parker asks, how much has your sleep increased since going full-time training?
Ooh, that's a good one. I've always sort of prioritized sleep, but it's definitely gone up. I would say like numbers wise, I was probably getting more like 7.5 back when I was working full time. And now I get more like 8.5. And a lot of that is just, I'm still getting up at 5 a lot of days to go to our master swim, but I'm adamant about going to bed early. And Mike, my husband, who's on this, can attest this. It's helpful because we go to bed early together. So it's like nice when you have someone else who's also sort of living that lifestyle with you and will also, thinks it's important to get in bed at 8.
Absolutely. Yeah. Are you a napper at all, or you just kind of try to relax?
Yeah, I'm not a good napper. I never have been. It's funny. I thought I would be when I left my job, but I'll do it if I'm truly exhausted, like if I just really don't have a good night's sleep and I'm up early for masters. So I would say I get maybe one every 2 to 3 weeks, but I'm not a napper. I just really prioritize my nighttime sleeping.
Perfect. Okay, Alex asks, what was your sporting background before triathlon?
Yeah. So I played like every sport in the book growing up. Unfortunately not swimming, biking or running, but I played lacrosse in college and then went to grad school right out of college and took up running when I was in grad school, just out of kind of stress and just kind of having a me time and some, yeah, it helped me kind of de-stress when I was in grad school, and I was running so much, my friends encouraged me to get to do a marathon. So yeah, I did my first marathon in 2016, and I did marathon running from 2016 to 2020. And then late 2020, I signed up for my first Ironman and did my first in 2021.
Very good. Okay, Andrew wrote, was going pro all you thought it would be, or is it something better?
Oh, I actually have to say I'm not sure if I had expectations for it. So it's hard to say whether I thought it would be like this. Not a day goes by where I don't feel very, very grateful for my life and being able to kind of do what I love every day. I think that's one thing that's really special about this is I actually truly love training and swimming and biking and running. And if I, could, I would choose to work out like I do every day. So I would say, I guess, better because I mean, what a treat. As a little kid, I always dreamt to be a pro athlete. At the time, I think I wanted to be a pro ice hockey player, but yeah, just to be able to be a pro athlete, it's pretty cool. And to have it happen so late in life. I'm 31, so it's not like it happened when I was younger, like a lot of other pro triathletes.
So at what age, just to back up, you started triathlon at what age? For all you young guys out there.
29.
29.
Started
Yeah.
swimming at 29.
Yeah. So you 20 to 23, 24. There's a lot of you on here. Just you got a lot of time to be patient. You're getting a big jump on all of us. Okay, Todd asked, has your diet changed daily and your race nutrition?
Yes and yes. Um, Daily, Natasha knows this, when I first started with her, I was actually vegan. And I have slowly modified that throughout my time training and just kind of listened to my body. I think I was doing it back then because it felt like I was being healthy. And at the time it was working really well for my body. But then, just with time started adding back fish and eggs and just listening to my body. I've had meat occasionally over the last month or two. I think the main thing I want, like every person's body, I think needs different fuel, right? So just listening to what your body wants and what you're craving and not being restrictive about it just because you think one way is the right way or the wrong way. So that's what I'm doing. I'm learning every day. And then race wise, yeah, I mean, before I started with Natasha, I don't think I was fueling well at all. I was doing marathons and I just think back to, what I was taking in. That was just so wrong, not enough. And yeah, so I've modified my race day nutrition. I've learned I do better taking in a bottle every 45 minutes as opposed to every hour. And think when I started, I was doing more like 80 carbs per hour, and now I aim for about 100. So just little things like that. I've changed the gels I use when I'm biking versus the ones when I'm running, just so I'm not getting like flavor fatigue and yeah, little things like that. And that all comes with just doing it during training. So really, really practicing your nutrition that you're going to race with during your training. So there's nothing new on race day and you've really got it dialed.
What was in the handheld bottle that you raced with? Of like Placid and they couldn't stop talking about? What was in there?
The thing is that the guy said I would like refill at aid stations. Why would I ever undo my top? Whatever, that's fine. But I was just running with Gatorade, the exact same thing that's at the aid stations. And I just do that because I want to be able to sip when I want to sip. I want to be able to take a gel when I want to take a gel. And I still, as those of you who watched, I still take at every aid station. I just want a little more. But yeah, ran with it in my right hand the whole time.
Terrible coaching. So here's a great question Mike asked. How do you deal with training days where you just have low motivation or don't feel like doing what is on Training Peaks?
You probably asked that today because I was in a mood before I had to go to the pool. I felt better after it, but I guess that's what I do. I just kind of tell myself I'm always going to feel better after I do it, even if there is low motivation. And then the other thing I tell myself is like, get on, if it's a bike ride, get on it and start. And I'll know after warm up, like if it's just mental or if it's really my body telling me like, no, it's because you're tired and this isn't going to be your day. So how do I deal with the low motivation? I don't know. I just kind of force myself to do it and then listen to my body from there on and just remember that I'm always going to feel better after.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, one of the markers of us seeing someone is going to do really well is when someone is simply consistent with their training plan and they're able to force themselves to show up no matter what. And then you get results like this. So Braden asked, was there a certain point physically or mentally that you feel marked going from a top age grouper to pro or more of a gradual transition?
I would say gradual, and that's because with each result, I probably gained a slightly more confidence in myself, both physically and mentally, with what I was capable of doing. I think that, like, with my first race, it was also new and like kind of getting the result I got. It was like, okay, I wonder if that was just like a really good day. And then, you go in the second one and you kind of prove to yourself that you can do it physically and mentally again. So yeah, definitely gradual, and it's still kind of continuing to be gradual. I still sometimes have those moments as a pro where I question my ability in the pro field. So I think it'll always be just like kind of a one race at a time sort of situation for me, but that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So we have a lot of questions about nutrition. So I want us to get a little more specific.
Right.
On the bike, how many, so you mentioned you're taking 100 grams of carbs per hour on the bike.
Yeah.
What was that coming from?
Yeah.
Yeah. What was your sources for that?
Yeah. So, and I see someone knows what I do, that they know I mix
Yeah.
my Martin. Yeah, so to get to 100, I do a bottle, like a 22 to 24 ounce bottle every 45 minutes. And in that bottle, I have a 160 Martin or Morton, however you want to say it, and a scoop of G1M, and normally a little extra just because you never get everything out of your bottle. And I kind of want to account for the little bit left over. And that is 60 grams of carbs in that bottle. So if I'm doing that every 45 minutes, I'm trying to do math right now, that leaves me like 15-ish for the hour. So like out of that, I'm getting up to 75 an hour. And then I do a cis gel, science and sport. I like those because they're isotonic. They're a little like larger. You get a little more volume. And for me, they just make me feel like I'm filling my stomach a little more. Isotonic means you don't have to take water with them. So I find they're a little easier on my stomach in that sense. And yeah, I switch caffeine and non-caffeinated on the bike. So I always take caffeine at hour 2 and hour 4. Why do I combine the Morton and the G1M? And that's just because they're different kinds of sugars. So you can only absorb like 60 grams of a certain type of sugar. The other reason I really do it is because I hate the taste of Morton and I really like the taste of G1M. So for me, it's also a taste thing. I get my like enough sodium. I want adding the G1M in there too. Yeah.
Yeah. How much sodium do you have to hit per hour? What's your target?
So my level and sweat test told me only 600 per hour on the bike and 900 on the run. So what I do is I kind of swap them in a way. I'm not like specific about it, but I try to do a little bit more on the bike so that I can be a little bit more lenient on the run. I am definitely fortunate in that my sodium needs are not sky high.
Yeah, that's really low compared to the average of what we see. And then once you get to the run, you said you ran with a Gatorade in your hand. How else do you take in fuel? What's your strategy there?
Yeah, so I have Morton's in my little handheld as well, the gels. I aim, although again, like the run, you can be a little bit more lenient, to take about half a gel every 20 minutes. For me, that helps because it's kind of like a mind game of being like, okay, it's been another 20 minutes. I get to take a gel. It kind of makes the time go by. I also do half a gel just because I find personally it's easier on my stomach than gulping down a full one. I tend to sort of alternate calf and non-calf with that too, but not trying to do more than like 2 caffeinated gels throughout the whole marathon, just because I don't want to go too crazy on the caffeine. Lake Placid, I actually got ahead of my 20 minutes and ended up probably taking half a gel more like every 15-ish, just because my stomach was feeling good and I kind of wanted it to stay that way. I knew that my nutrition was super, super important there. In the past, I've grabbed a banana at the beginning of the marathon, but I had one in my transition bag and decided not to take it for Placid, which I think is why I kind of caught up and did the extra gels. But yeah, Gatorade, every aid station, I grab as many kind of as I can. And then I have my one in my hands. So I'm not like policing how much I'm taking in. I'm just kind of going off like what my body's wanting.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay. We got quite a few more questions here. Thanks, guys. They're all good. So we'll keep going to stay on. So we got from a brand new triathlete from Garrett, who just joined us. How do you balance pushing yourself as hard as possible in training while successfully avoiding injury? Where is the line?
Yeah, I mean, I think this isn't going to answer that question exactly, but I think the most important thing you can do there is really to actually prioritize your strength work. Do your Monday mobility, do your strength on Wednesday or Thursday, whenever you do it, just to make sure that your body is durable. And then, push yourself as hard as possible in training. I wouldn't say I'm necessarily pushing myself as hard as possible. As I was saying, like I do a lot of my runs off heart rate based stuff. So I'm not redlining on my runs. I'm trying to stay in a pretty comfortable place while still like gaining fitness. On the bike, it's all really power based stuff based on my FTP. So again, it's not, I have the occasional VO2 max where I'm going really, really hard, but thankfully on the bike, it's a little harder to injure yourself than like on the run. So yeah, I'm not pushing myself as hard as possible. And I'm also doing my strength work to try to keep my body durable. That doesn't mean I haven't had my little niggles here and there and things that have come up, but just getting on top of it early too, when you do feel something. Yeah.
Yeah. So a question to follow that up, in a week of training or even a month of training, how many times would you say you even get to a point of pushing yourself as hard as possible?
Yeah, and I actually had an athlete ask me this the other day, and that's interesting because I personally think that depends on where I am in like a block. Like, am I early season where we're doing a ton of like VO2 to really get my bike strong, or am I kind of like middle season doing a lot of like Ironman, maybe sweet spot stuff? You're not really pushing there. So I would say right now in like a month, I'm not pushing myself as hard as possible, really ever. I'm getting close, but I'm never like more than 90%.
Yeah. Yeah. Like an effort is maybe an 8 on like a key workout
Yeah.
for an interval, but that's about it once a
Yeah.
week. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Okay. I just really wanted to emphasize that, especially for newer athletes. Okay. We have a few more here. What's the biggest thing you're working to improve right now? That's a great question, Justine.
Oh. um gosh. Uh Personally, I really want to get my open water swim to reflect my pool swim times. That's been something very difficult for me since starting triathlon. So I've been doing a ton of open water swimming. Um, Other things, I want to be able to hold like my Ironman bike power consistent throughout the entire Ironman. I've found I fade a little in the last hour and a half. So just to be able to really hold that strong. And I think a lot of that is getting my nutrition right, because as I keep getting my nutrition better and better, I seem to be able to hold it a little higher. Yeah, and then I mean, here I'm just saying one for each thing. Just be able to run the marathon, I know I'm capable of off the bike too, but I think that's just going to come with more and more Ironmans.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, great question from Braden. Do you utilize special needs on the bike, or do you try to carry it all with you?
I utilize it. The one race I didn't, I blew up. So yes, I stick with what I know. I've like you guys just heard my little special concoction I use on the bike. Yeah, I pick it up. And actually, Lake Placid was the first time I picked up a run special needs too. I just picked up another handheld bottle, super easy to do, and ran with it again for the second lap. So yes, I utilize it. I'd rather have what I know.
Awesome. And I'll just share a quick tip. If you are in hot conditions, I would freeze my bottles that I'm going to put in special needs, because by the time you get there, then it might be a slushy, or at least it's still cold. Versus, do you do that at all, or just make it really cold with ice?
Yeah, no, I never have done that. I didn't do it at Placid this year because it wasn't meant to be that hot, but definitely something I'll consider at like really hot races. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, Megan Yarberry, she said, I also played lacrosse in college. Where did you play? I'll start with that.
Yeah, I played at Hamilton College, so just D3, but still fun.
And then she said, is there anything from being a college athlete that has made you better triathlete?
Um, Maybe just like the discipline of it and having practice every day. And I looked forward to practice every day. So, I mean, I look forward to training every day. Maybe that's it. I just think I like being active. Mindset too. Yeah, being a college athlete is, I think, special.
Here's a great question from Andrew. With you going by your heart rate, what about if your heart rate is high, but you feel really good, especially on a running workout? What would you do?
Yeah, no, I try to listen. I truly try to listen to the heart rate. I try to back off. I have like too much data you guys probably don't care about, but my like aerobic heart rate is 139 and under. Basically, I try to stay under that. And if I'm having a day where I feel really, really good, but my heart rate's not behaving, I'll let it get to like 144. So nothing crazy, because I know I can tolerate that like 145, 144 and lower, but yeah, you pull back. There's a reason your heart's doing that. Either you're dehydrated, not fueled well, you didn't sleep well, stress, it's really hot. Oftentimes right now it's the heat, and you really should listen to your heart rate because it's going to affect your next session more than you know.
Perfect. Great
Yeah.
advice. Another one, we have one more. Before you went full time, how did you go about managing your time with training, work, life, especially during weeks where you had more volume?
Yeah, that was just really, really having a routine. I would say those weeks when I had more volume, it was the volume was coming from the weekends. So it wasn't really affecting my day-to-day of the week and work-life balance there. Yeah, like every Monday was the same, every Tuesday was the same, every Wednesday was the same. So I was able to just kind of make it part of my life. And then I think I've probably mentioned this a few times here, but just like making it fun. I really looked forward to my workouts when I was working full time. It was kind of like my de-stressor. It was like the high point of every part of my day. So I really looked forward to it. And I knew if I didn't get to it, I wasn't going to be as like happy or successful or like productive in my job that I was working. So just I prioritized it really, and made it part of my routine.
Perfect. Great question to close on. Alice, thank you so much for your time
Yeah.
today to answer those questions. Guys, thank you so much for participating in that and asking some really great questions that I think everyone did benefit from. So yeah, we will look to follow her. Maryland is what, in 5 weeks, 4 weeks? How far out are
Four,
we?
like less than four, because it's 20th is the 16th. So yeah, give
Yeah.
it 4 weeks.
4 weeks, Ironman Maryland, Boston next week, and then she'll be at Ironman Florida with you all as well. So, guys, hope you have a great week. Thank you again, Alice. And yeah, we'll see you guys next week.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.